basic gist of it is is that we have a body, to state the obvious. We have a mind, we have a spirit, we have an intellect, we have emotions, and we can either learn how to use those tools to our advantage, or we can kind of be the the puppet on the puppet strings being pulled around by circumstances. Now, it's quite normal to be influenced or pulled around by circumstances, and it takes a fair degree of training. It takes a fair degree of dedication and willingness and know-how to be able to kind of take the reins back and take the power back and say, look, I'm in charge of how I think, I'm in charge of how I feel, I'm in charge of how I act. And one of the first things to kind of wrestle with and get control of, maybe control isn't exactly the right word because we actually need to use kind of a gentle approach in order for this to work. And I'll get to it later. This is not just, it's not just that I'm interested in a soft approach. In fact, the soft approach is the right approach. It's the only approach that works in this case because the mind is a really slippery place, and we need to kind of be more like the horse or the dog whisperer than the one that tries to whip our dog or horse into shape. Whipping our dog or horse into shape doesn't really work. So the topic of today's video is to stop harassing ourselves. There's enough stuff going on out there. There's enough difficulties, but we all are familiar. Anyone familiar with the inner critic, the petty tyrant, the monkey mind, just the near constant kind of ticker tape parade of berating ourselves, of beating ourselves up, of criticizing things, of judging, of just, adding insult to injury, And one of the reasons why I'm bringing this to you is because, I practice these things. I live these tools myself. And so over this last week, I've had some challenges. Last week, my son got sick, and then my daughter got sick, and she's only 2, and then I got sick, and then of course, we're thinking, wow, uh-oh, I hope this isn't COVID. And it turns out we've all been tested, so I'll spare you the suspense. We've all been tested, and it is not COVID, but it definitely activated my anxiety. It activated my fight, flight, or freeze response. It activated my distress response, and I had an ongoing kind of mental chatter that was saying, "What if?" or "Oh no," or "What's wrong with you?" or "How could you do this?" and analyzing everything. Or maybe did you how could you risk your kids? Whatever it is, and it all of which was extremely, extremely counterproductive because at this point now we have a cold and it's a normal cold, and now I want my immune system to be working for me. But when my fight, flight, or freeze system, when the survival part of the brain is working, the immune system is actually really, really impaired because think about it this way. When I am really angry, fight. When I am afraid, flight. Or when I am depressed, hopeless, helpless, numb, freeze, fight, flight, or freeze, that is the survival part of the brain. Okay? That survival part of the brain is not interested in my being happy. It's interested in only my survival. It's not interested in according to the nervous system, which not isn't really thinking rationally about things. It's just saying, oh, well, if you're angry, you're afraid, you're depressed, well, then you must be in danger. And so it takes resources away from things that are good for our long-term health and happiness, and it activates them for immediate danger. But it's not the type of immediate danger that most of us are facing nowadays. And most of us are facing, stress, worries about the future, or regrets about the past, or emotional difficulties with our partners, right? Whatever it is, or feeling, a little bit discouraged about being in the house a lot, or whatever it is. But the survival part of the brain, what it prepares for is immediate danger, and it says, well, that means according to the brain, there's a tiger in the room. And if there's a tiger in the room, I'm not going to waste time digesting food. I'm not going to waste time and energy healing that common cold. I'm not going to waste time and energy growing my hair and nails. I'm not going to waste time and energy to enjoy the beautiful sunset. I am going to shunt resources away from those things and put them into the survival mode only. So that inner critic, that inner petty tyrant, that inner monkey mind that's saying, "Oh no, what if?" or "that bastard," or "I'm such a loser," or whatever, that is keeping us stuck in a state of survival that is counterproductive, not only to our happiness, because obviously we know we're not happy when we're in those states, but it's also um, a detriment to our physical health and well-being. Okay, so what I'm here to talk about today is, what do we do about that? How do we stop harassing ourselves? Okay, and we need practical tools, because it's one thing to understand this all, and then it's another thing to say, well, what the heck do I do about it? Well, here today is a what the heck do I do about it? Okay, so this is a familiar model for those that have been following the videos, but I'm going to repeat it anyhow. And what we've just been talking about, this is the three-part brain. This is obviously an extreme oversimplification of the brain. You have the rational thinking brain, you have the emotional brain, you have the instinctual brain. This can also be said to be like the human brain, the mammalian brain, and the reptilian brain. And right in here, there's an alarm switch, and that alarm switch, for useful intents and purposes, we can call it the amygdala. Of course, it's many things interacting at once. When that alarm switch goes on and we go into surviving mode, like I was just discussing, then we have only three gears: fight, flight, and freeze. Here's the thing, right? So think of it like a gear shift. You go, okay, now I'm in fight, I'm in flight, I'm in freeze. That's the only options when we're in the survival mode. So we can't expect ourselves to think, feel, or act differently than anger, fear, or depression if we are in survival mode. It's literally biologically and neurologically impossible. So when we're beating ourselves, when we're having those nights where we can't sleep, and we're worried and we're thinking, and then we go, and then why can't I just go to sleep, or what's wrong with me, or just shut up, or and then we're trying to watch Netflix to numb it out. Well, that's freeze. We're basically using the survival mode to try to get rid of the survival mode. And that doesn't work. That's like fighting fire with fire. We need to fight fire with water. So if I'm beating myself up, if I'm saying, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I just let it go? Why can't I just relax? Why am I feel so afraid?" Or if I'm going, "Oh no, what if it really happens?" Or "Oh, this is so stupid," or I'm gonna numb out. I'm gonna overeat. I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna watch 15, episodes in a row. All these things, these are fight, flight, and freeze strategies. So you can't solve a problem from the level where it's at. So how do we kind of trick ourselves in a certain sense? By learning the mechanisms of the brain and the nervous system, we can learn how to kind of trick ourselves out of these states. And the irony is that we have to get out of the state in order to get out of the state. Now I know, what does that sounds like, kind of like double talk, but so a lot of what I'm going to share with you today, you're going to have to just kind of feel into and see if you can kind of get a sense of what I mean, because there are some things about it that are just experiential, okay? And so but basically the gist of it is, we need to fight fire with water instead of fighting fire with fire. And I'm likening the survival part of the brain to the fire, and the petty tyrant, the monkey mind, the inner critic, the dictator, that all those inner voices, I'm liking that to more fire. And so we kind of have this conditioning, or this belief, that if I beat myself up, if I chastise myself enough, I will correct. And that's actually not really how it works. We might have been taught that, we might have been raised that way, we might have had military training that enforced that, we might have had a boss that has enforced that, but it's not actually the most effective way. And a really good example of that, it's become popular on TV shows these days, or movies, right? A really good example of that is looking at the difference between a horse or a dog whisperer, and someone that whips their pet into shape. Well, the pet, if you whip it into shape, might obey, it might concede, it might behave the way you want it to in the short term, but you break its spirit, and eventually it is going to misbehave, it's going to rebel, it's going to be unhappy, it's going to get sick, and it's not actually going to be have the experience that you want it to have if you actually care about this animal. And so over the long term, although it takes more skill, it takes more patience to really learn how to kind of get in the mind of that animal and and show it a better way that it wants to take, not that it has to take because it's afraid of the consequences of not taking it. You're going to have a much better result. So maybe that example works for you, maybe not, but we'll try some more as we go along. The point is that with our own mind, if we are beating ourselves up for already feeling like crap, we are guaranteeing that we are going to keep feeling like crap. If we are judging ourselves and criticizing ourselves and hating ourselves, if I'm saying, oh, I'm so anxious, I hate how anxious I feel, well, now I'm adding anger to anxious. I'm adding fight to flight. Oh, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I'm going to just pull the covers up and watch Netflix all day. Now I'm adding freeze to flight. I'm all staying in the same part of the nervous system, and I can't therefore get unstuck from the same components of the nervous system. So I need to figure out a way to be my own horse whisperer, to be my own dog whisperer, to be my own advocate in a way that will actually work. And so the only way, and now I'm going to start getting into a little cliche, the only way is kindness. The only way is acceptance and what I'm calling radical self-acceptance. But I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, okay? It's not just a theory, and it's not just psychobabble. It's not just, feel good Mr. Rogers stuff, although I love Mr. Rogers. It is really, it is really, really the only practical way to work with yourself that is actually going to work in the long run to ensure your health and happiness. So, what do we do? Okay, so I find myself, my mind is spinning, I'm feeling anxious, let's say, because that's the most recent thing that I was feeling. I'm feeling anxious, my mind is spinning, I'm going, what ifs, what ifs, what ifs? Well, I need to find a way to dissociate, to separate myself from being so identified with those stories. Okay, so I need to kind of remove myself, my awareness. I need to get distance from the story. Well, how the heck do you do that? You say, well, the story's in my mind. How do I get distance from that? Well, guess what? There are tricks and tools of the mind that we can use to gain that kind of inner distance. One author that I like calls it going to the balcony. Another is, but basically it's going to incorporate things that we've already been talking about in some of these videos. And one of them, and the first things first, is to take what we have been calling extra and open attention. So the first thing is I need to go, whoa, 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 whoa. The monkey mind is going, 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 going. If I try to get in there and wrestle with that monkey, I'm just gonna get cut up. That we're just gonna fight, and that's only gonna cause more commotion, more chaos, and the monkey is gonna have my tail, and it's gonna say, "Hey, I got you," right? So I need to kind of learn how to just pause for a second and get away from the fight. And so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna just pause and I'm gonna just ask myself a simple question. I'm gonna just say to myself, okay, where do I notice this in my body? Okay. It's not necessarily a rational question at this point, right? It's a rational approach in total. But where do I notice it in my body? Well, what do you mean? Where do I notice it in my body? Well, just simply by asking the question, and now I'm going to start scanning my body sensations. I'm going to notice, well, oh, I feel some extra sensation in my belly, or I feel some extra sensation in my chest, okay? So that's step number one, is where do I notice it in my body? Now, I'm going to run through it just to make sure that the way I do it. So, where do I notice it in my body? Okay, now I notice it. I notice it in my belly. I notice it in my chest. Oftentimes, with discursive, difficult, turmoil emotions, it's going to be somewhere in this front panel, okay, in the belly or the chest. It doesn't matter where it is, honestly, because what you're really trying to accomplish is to dissociate your awareness away from the stories, from the looping stories, and towards something visceral, towards something in your body. And now this is going to be activating what we've called in the past extra attention. Extra attention is the feeling of aliveness, the literal feeling of aliveness in your body right here in the present moment. And this brings me to an interesting point, because what you're going to notice is that every single one of these stories, unless you are facing a real danger, in which case I want to be in survival mode. If I'm in real danger, if there really is a tiger, then I want fight, flight, or freeze to help me out. I want my instinctual intelligence to take over. But other than that, 99.9% of the suffering that human beings experience is about a story. It's about something that is happening, that's something that we do not want to happen in the future, something that we want to happen in the future, but we're afraid it won't happen in the future. It's about something that happened in the past that we regret, but it's never point blank in the moment, or it's rarely point blank in the moment. And again, if it is point blank in the moment, then fight, flight, or freeze is an appropriate response. So, what I want to do is come back to the visceral reality of my felt living sensations. And I'm not talking about any interpretation of it, I'm not talking about emotion, I'm talking about the tangible body. Okay? The tangible body. So then I'm going to say to myself, okay, well, where do I notice? Okay, I notice it in my belly. Okay? I might even put my hand right there just to kind of help me get my feeling sensations there. I might even rub it a little bit, give myself a little love. All right. So that's kind of a joke. You don't have to do that, but it actually helps. So I'm gonna then ask myself, am I willing to just feel the sensations? Am I willing to just feel the sensations? And now I'm switching my focus from the story, from the mental movie, from the ticker tape parade, from the inner critic, from the monkey mind, to the sensations in my body. Okay? Extra attention. Now, I'm just going to try to enhance that and just say, okay, well, what does it feel like? Is it, oh, I feel a little bit nauseous, and I feel, again, not interpreting it, but just, oh, I feel some tension, I feel some tightness. You're going to notice that right when you start to feel it, that tension and that tightness is going to start to shift. It's going to start to change. Follow that. Allow it to spread. Allow those physical, visceral sensations, allow your awareness to spread to other parts of your body. And eventually, you might discover that you are even your awareness can start to permeate all throughout your body. Okay, that's wonderful. But if it just stays in the place where the energy feels kind of stuck or intense, that's okay too. So, extra attention. Now, open attention. We've talked about open attention in the past. Open attention is the experience of the space all around your body. So now not only am I aware of the physical sensations around my body, but I'm aware of the space around my body. Okay? There's really good neurological research that goes to demonstrates why this is all effective, and we don't really have time to get into that today. So hopefully you can give it a shot and take my word for it, right? But you don't have to take my word for it beyond the willingness to give it a shot, because if you give it a shot, you'll get the results, and when you get the results, then you'll have your own proof, you'll have your own demonstration, right? So at a certain point, you have to see for yourself. At the beginning, you might have to take someone's word for it when you're learning something new to be willing to give it a try. And also, you might have to be willing to give it a try enough times, recognizing that you might have some beginner's luck, but at the same time, any skill worth cultivating is one that you have to practice to be good at. And the more you practice it, the better at it you get. So open attention is the awareness of the space around my body. And for today's purposes, I'm just going to say, just feel into it. And as we're talking about it right now, just see what it feels like. Maybe you close your eyes, maybe you keep them open. What do I mean by when I say allow my awareness to fill the room that I'm in. This is what I'm saying. That is some of these things they have to be experientially felt, because you're like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, you can only know what I mean by that by doing it and being like, oh yeah, I can feel my awareness in the top right corner of the room. I can feel it behind me. I can feel it to the left. I can feel it to the right. I can feel it below me. I can feel it above me. And I can allow my awareness to fill the space around my body. And this is going to be the key. What I want to do is then identify my awareness with the space around my body as who I am. That awareness, the space around my body, is going to host the experience of my body. Again, you have to experience it in order to understand what I'm talking about. So I'm going to say, okay, now and when I ask myself these questions, is like, how do I just host this experience from the awareness around my body? How do I let my awareness be bigger than the situation? How do I let my awareness be bigger than my emotions or my physical sensations? And I host them, okay? And then I ask myself, can I be okay with this? Can I just allow myself to witness this, to observe this, to be okay with this? And sometimes the answer is going to be no, I'm not okay with it. So then I'm going to go, well, can I allow myself to be okay that I'm not okay with it? Okay, yeah, I can do that. Or can I allow myself to be okay with it that I'm not okay with it? Okay, you can keep expanding your awareness to a wider and wider degree, and including the space. It doesn't need to just be limited to the space in your body. And what you're going to find is, as your awareness gets farther away from your body and you gain more and you get to a level of acceptance, of okayness, you're going to turn off the alarm switch and you're going to get into the thriving mode. And that monkey mind is going to dissolve. And I actually like to think of it like that. I feel it like that. It was like, okay, if I'm hosting this experience and if my awareness is in the space around my body, then I let those physical tensions or those emotions or those stories come off of my body and they like melt into the space. They melt into the space. Again, this part of it is not really, these are things that we can do that activate certain things in our brain that get the result they want. But you're not going to be able to explain how this works really, except for knowing that it works if you do it. And so what you're doing is you're using your own brain the way it works. Okay? And so again, like I said, this author that I like calls it going to the balcony. So he sees himself as if he was in the balcony and his life circumstances are going on the stage. And so he can still get information from those circumstances, but the further away, the bigger our awareness is around the situation, the smaller our emotional reactivity will be. When our emotional reactivity, remember, emotional reactivity is anger, fear, and depression, fight, flight, or freeze. When our emotional reactivity shrinks, then we have clarity and we go into the thriving part of our nervous system. We can effectively problem solve, we can get a breather, we can take a break, we can actually, we can actually feel better. And we do it not by wrestling with, not by fighting with, not by judging, not by beating up, not by criticizing, but by letting our awareness get bigger than the situation. And this is just a tool. This is a mental, neurological capacity that we can exercise. The law of the brain is neuroplasticity. What you focus on grows. If you focus on your awareness getting bigger and bigger, you will grow in the neurological capacity for that to be a reality for you. And so you can practice expanding your awareness to include and host your situation. And then imagination is amazing. We have a saying in our language that says, oh, it's just your imagination. There's even a song that sometimes gets stuck in my head when I teach this. It's just your imagination, right? Well, guess what? just your imagination, it's not just your imagination. Your imagination is extremely powerful. Your mind is extremely powerful. Think about the last time you had a nightmare. Well, was the dangerous thing happening? Of course it wasn't. It was just pictures. It was just your imagination. But did it not have a physiological effect? Was your heart not pounding? Were you not clenching your teeth? Were your body not tense? Did you not wake up with sore muscles or tired? Well, you did, because your imagination had an incredible effect on your physiology. Well, just your imagination, when you're awake, can also have an incredible effect on your physiology. So imagining your expanded awareness, and then imagining those stories from the monkey mind, or those physical tensions, or those pains, or those anxieties, or those angers dissolving into that awareness, like something dissolving into space, then that will actually have a physiological effect. You're going to notice that your heart rate is going to go down, your breathing is going to be more slow and even, the physical tensions in your body are going to go away, that nausea you were feeling with that anxiety is going to dissipate, and you're going to be in more of a state of peace and clarity, and you are going to have more access to the thriving part of your nervous system, so that even if there is a problem that you need to solve, you're going to have a better capacity to do so, and you're going to be on your way to health and happiness, and you are not going to be trying to uh, fight, flight, or freeze your way out of fight, flight, or freeze. You accept. Can I accept the situation? No. Okay, can I accept that I can't accept the situation? Yeah. Or what if it's no? Okay, can I accept? And it gets a little, you might get a little bit tongue twisted as you keep going wider, but it doesn't matter. Again, it's just a tool to activate certain parts of your brain. It doesn't need to be literal. All you need to do is get to a point where you can accept it, where you can notice it, where you can witness it, where you can watch it, and then to allow it to dissipate, to allow it to resolve. Okay? So, any questions, any comments, please put them in the comments below. Feel free to share this video with anyone that you'd like. Feel free to check in with us if you need more assistance than this video can provide, and we can try to point you in the direction of good resources. We'll continue to do these videos on a weekly basis, and I hope they're a useful support for you. And I hope that despite the difficulties in the world around us, you are learning some things about taking charge of your own nervous system, and that you have a degree of responsibility, but also efficacy, capacity to influence your own experience, to be in charge of your own thinking, feeling, and acting, so that you're not a victim of the circumstances. Instead, you are the creator of your own inner sense of well-being, and the way in which that ripples out into the world, to your loved ones, to your community, is truly a benefit. Okay? Love you all. Have a wonderful day. Feel free to be in touch, and